podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
We should all want to exercise, eat less, be generally healthy, and therefore be less of a strain on the NHS. And we've talked about it many times on this podcast. We can all do our bit, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to run a marathon. But from where I'm standing, and certainly not running, it continues to be a growing sports market. I'm John.
And I'm Michael, and as you know, I have a theory. I always say if you've run a marathon, you will tell someone you've run a marathon. I've run a marathon. So congratulations to the record-breaking 42,000 runners who took to the streets of Manchester at the weekend, cheered on by an estimated 150,000 spectators. But is John right? With marathons across most UK cities now, London's marathon looking to expand further, we're asking the question, is running big business?
Hello, I'm Andrew Smith, CEO of ASO UK, the organisers of the Adidas Manchester Marathon. I would say that it is big business, without a shadow of a doubt. And it's probably, hopefully it's bigger than just business. I'm sorry if I'm come across as slightly tired after putting in quite a few steps yesterday, cheering on the 42,000 people. And, Manchester, even the day after, this recording the day after the Manchester Marathon, the hotels are still full of people coming out and wearily heading towards breakfast. They'll be wearing the medal for days, not just around Manchester, but wherever they're from. So, without a shadow of a doubt, from a kind of economic impact and from a business impact, marathons are incredibly successful, without a shadow of a doubt.
And let's dig into those numbers a little bit. You said it is big business, but it's not all just about business. But those numbers from the weekend, record numbers, spectators, the boost to the economy, as well as what was going on in Manchester yesterday, some football match that no one really cares about. But but talk to us about those numbers.
They're highly impactful, especially in a marathon, because what tends to happen is that on average, and we know this through surveys that we do from across the industry, independent surveys, that especially a marathon, because it's a bucket list moment for a lot of people, a lot of first timers. They'll bring an average of 3 people. I definitely saw groups of 10, 12 people, cheering on extended family yesterday. Just that alone, the 150 is a very fair estimate. TFGM, who support us massively moving people around, particularly the tram network around Manchester, tell us it's the busiest day in Manchester. The contacts to get on and off of trains vouch for that. So it's bigger than the football matches. It's bigger than, the other running events. It's bigger than Pride. We're very proud of that, really. So just the numbers of spectators alone creates big impact. And across the charity sector as well, you'll hear marathons raising millions. Before we started yesterday, we had pretty much hit our target of over 5 million. So the coming days are really big. You can really, really ramp that up. So let's see where we get to. Let's head towards 10 million, hopefully. So huge impact in the charity sector, both locally and nationally, which is always really, really good.
And you talked about the marathon being a moment for many people, and this being your biggest event that you run here in the UK as well. What is it about the marathons? As I said, it feels like they're getting bigger and bigger and more available for people. But why do people feel like they need to do 26.2 miles?
I was listening to another podcast the other day of a pretty decent runner, and I do think that it stands there as a brilliant brand anyway. It's called the Marathon, right? It has a history, a heritage, obviously a strong connection to the Olympics. It's got a bit of royal family connectivity as well from the 1908 Olympics. So it's got a lot of history, a lot of tradition. And to call it, lots of people have called it, sort of the people's sort of Everest. And that kind of makes, I think, a lot of sense. I think being a parent and speaking to other parents that run, I think it's just the right amount of time, the long runs that they can fit in around the challenges and of parenting in the modern world. So I think it's just the sweet spot of a really, really hard challenge, and people can find a way to fit that into their busy lives and schedules. It's just got this brilliant history and heritage that people love. And it's been very popular John, amongst the kind of the 20 somethings. And there's lots of theories and reasons behind that. There's a big community aspect to running a lot of togetherness. People can find their people, their tribe that support them, which is brilliant. So that's helpful. It's, not as expensive as a lot of, sports, hobbies, going out and about, really. All the marathons in the UK are less than £100. And when you consider that can be quite a life-changing moment for a lot of people, that can be deemed quite good value. So I think it's just got a lot going for it, really, in a world that at times can be a bit divided and at times can be hard on people financially. So, and I love a marathon, John. I really, really do.
I was going to talk about the divisive world we're living in at the minute. And I think with marathons, there's kind of two events going on at once, and that is part of the appeal. There's elite races, and we know that, and you had your elite fields yesterday, but then you've got everyone else, the masses, who are able to compete on the same day, in the same conditions, on the same course. And that's quite unique in sport, I feel.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, Michael. You've hit the nail on the head there. It has always been an amazing moment, isn't it? It's brilliant that you get to run with, in and around some of the world's greatest runners. I've been fortunate to go to most marathons in the world, and they're all inspiring from the start, but particularly at the finish. We had an amazing woman going for the world record. It hasn't been ratified yet, but she was running in a sari, and she really went for it. Sub 3:45, still a very good time, but it brings out everyone across society, and that's what I really love about it. It feels like everyone's wedding day, really. It's like yesterday, it was like 42,000 people, names on their bibs. And when at a wedding, everyone's on your team, everyone's on your side. People get a bit nervous about the speeches. It's like, don't worry about it. We're on your team. And it's like that in a marathon. People will cheer people home. We had some amazing, amazing moments yesterday, and we'll be looking back at them fondly this week and beyond, really. And that's what it's all about.
I was watching some of the scenes, I think Brighton's marathon recently, and I know that I'm going to be working in Leeds at the Rob Borough Marathon. Is it a good thing that most cities now, a lot of big towns, are adopting these kind of long running events?
I think so. Yeah. Most towns would have a half or a marathon, Michael. You're absolutely right. And yeah, I think it gives people, access to a great moment. If you just even take a half marathon, it's an incredible challenge to run 13 miles, just sitting wherever you are at the moment, just think where is 13 miles away and think, oh, I've got to get there on foot. It's not easy. So I think the half marathon distance, yeah, every town kind of and city have that. And again, on smaller scales, but in terms of getting that city and that town healthy and moving, it's not as impactful from a road network perspective, a half marathon. So it literally is like half the day is affected road and traffic wise, which on a Sunday is not too bad. So yeah, it's great to see that up and down the country. Michael, I know the guys that put on the Leeds Marathon, and they're brilliant. They put on some brilliant races in and around Yorkshire. So, there's event organisers up and down the country putting on events that inspire people, really, and get people fit and healthy.
And how important is it that it is a spread across the country? There obviously is these reports that London is looking to expand itself, whether it's a one-off or whether it's more than that, but across a weekend, maybe having 2 days of racing, particularly in 2027.
Putting London, that 2-day thing, just to one side for a second, the first part of your question there, John, yeah, look, it's really important. You want the whole country to be fit and healthy and active, and you want every city and town to have that opportunity to celebrate, the brilliant, architecture or culture or differences that particular town or city might have, and you want to draw people there, don't you? I went with my family to Bath just for Easter, and that's got a half marathon, and it's great having races up and down the country showcasing beautiful kind of cities, really.
So saying that, is London trying to dominate too much with the fact that they want to get bigger? Because the London Marathon has that even more special connotation to it, probably because of most of us growing up watching it.
Yeah, no, it's special. I've worked on over 20 London marathons, so I know what a special event it is. And I think that, obviously it's not been explained fully by the event organisers or from the mayor's office, albeit they've said they're in talks and they're exploring it. I think that was some of their words that came out of both of those areas. And I've been very focused on the Manchester Marathon, but nonetheless, these conversations naturally come up, John, as you can imagine. And tongue in cheek, we said we'd speak to Andy Burnham and see if we can move Manchester to maybe one of the Maybank holidays and do 3 in a row. But that was tongue in cheek. I think lots of people love the magic of a one-day marathon in particular. It takes over the city in a brilliant, brilliant way. There's no doubt about it. And what you've got to be careful of is sort of diluting the magic. That's what I would, caution anyone doing. Just that the magic of that one day is exceptional. And I was speaking to an elite runner recently. They were saying, would anyone running on the Saturday feel that wasn't the day, that wasn't the big day, the main day, the historic day? And I think, the sense I get from a lot of the running community is it's such a special, amazing, brilliant moment. Like a Christmas day is brilliant and amazing, but you don't really want Christmas every day. And I think, perhaps a 2-day marathon is, maybe a step too far for a lot of people, but we'll see. I'm sure they'll be answering those questions this week.
And have you any idea kind of the reasons behind it? Is it 2 days we can raise more money for charity? Is it 2 days we can just get more people racing? Is it 2 days we can double the profit margin?
I would think to a degree it's all of those metrics, Michael. Quite possibly. Again, I'm not speaking on behalf of London Marathon events, but they're also about inspiring activity. So ultimately, it would inspire a lot of people to run the day before. But we think that cities and events like Manchester Marathon growing in size can also inspire people up and down the country. I think it is all of those things. But I'm not sure it's needed really. But that's sort of my view on it. I'll be honest, the bit I don't quite get I'm a bit tired, so I don't quite know the maths, but in 27, would it be the 46th or 47th London? It seems a strange year. If it was the 50th, I think a lot of people would go, okay, that seems like that you just want to, but yeah, they're saying, there's reports of a one-off on the 46th or 47th. It seems a strange thing. I don't get that, but that's for them to talk to really, because they'll have to talk to it this week.
And you will know better than most as a marathon organizer the logistics of shutting down a city. Could you even begin to fathom going to Andy Burnham and saying, I need to shut down Manchester for 2 days and everything that entails?
Yeah, that's really hard. Yeah, absolutely, Michael. That's really, really hard. I've got a huge background in sort of the operational delivery of marathons, and a Saturday is a very different day. That's the thing. We work very closely with the city here, as John said earlier. Huge football match yesterday. Kind of on the other side of the city, Man United. We work really, really well with them. And something like London Marathon route, it does have Charlton, it does have Millwall. So those are just 2 examples of extra elements that you have to negotiate, let alone, tourism, theatres, etc. So a Saturday is a different day to a Sunday. A big reason why events happen on a Sunday is because, particularly on a Sunday morning, the impact is, minimal, even to very big cities. So introducing that on a Saturday will be very, very hard and demanding. And I'm sure certain parts of the city would struggle with that because they might be, have access restricted for an extended period of time, which will be very hard for them.
We're talking to Andrew Smith, CEO of ASO UK, organisers of the Adidas Manchester Marathon that took place at the weekend. But let's talk about you a little bit, Andrew. How on earth do you get to be CEO of ASO, who actually, they run the Tour de France, don't they, in France?
Yeah. So that's the biggest event that ASO do, the parent company in France, and it's coming to the UK in 27, which we're really really happy about. I went into event organising from university, really. Joined London Marathon events, worked there for many years, and then a brilliant opportunity came up at ASO UK, and I've been here for 3 years. So it's that journey. But the passion is about a young kid that loved running, really. I loved running, saw an advert in Athletics Weekly for an admin assistant at London Marathon Limited, it was called then. Didn't realise that would be a job. Went and met a former elite athlete called Dave Bedford, who was in charge of London Marathon events at the time. And yeah, joined that company and learnt a great deal. Worked on 2012 Olympics as well. Was very fortunate to work on that, which was great for me in my career. And here I am now. And big focus is on growing the Manchester events in particular.
Another two-part question for me. Firstly, how do we build on the success of all these marathons that are taking place around the country, the tourism where I know people go and run in Chicago or Boston or whatever, and there is that passion for the sport in this country. But then how do we then get that into supporting our elite athletes? I think the European Athletics Championships is going to be very successful this year in this country, but there's this whole hoo-ha about the West Ham letting the World Championships come to London, etc. Maybe in 2029, and the row going on there. Why don't we see the support for kind of the running elite, if you like we do with everyone taking part in marathons and half marathons?
Yeah, I'm not sure really why there isn't that level of support, because you think there would be in answer to that. I mean, what we and I think the road running industry are doing to kind of support kind of elite level runners and their participation is actually we've got what I would call really quite a good variety of races whereby you can run what's called run through events, and they're even introducing an elite program, quicker kind of events, and then you move up to more sort of city centre events like like us in Manchester or Great Manchester Run, and there's sort of pathways and programs. We had some of the best sort of domestic elites yesterday with time bonuses to kind of give them a different pathway, because sometimes it's hard for them to get into London because they're big international athletes. So I think it's for the next level down in our sector of the sport to make sure that there's a bit of a pathway for, if not quite elite athletes, what we would call sub-elite athletes. So I think there's definitely a journey that road runners can go on. But we're obviously part of the track and field world and family. But we sit in a slightly different space.
And to build on that and not wanting to put something else in your inbox the morning after your big event yesterday, but World Athletics have announced this new World Marathon Championship, which is going to be taking place away from the traditional World Championships, which mainly are in a stadium. There's World Road Running Championships. Is that something you could see Manchester stepping up and bidding to host?
I think it would definitely worth me looking at it. It was interesting when it came out, really. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And the emotive and the connectivity of something like Athens is really, really strong. So I will definitely be looking at it closely. We've obviously got, both the marathon and we've got the half marathon. So I think there's opportunities in both of those particular events for people like us to look at, and then we can speak to someone like Andy Burnham and say, look, we could potentially work together and go for one of these in the future if it works. But I haven't sort of seen what the event organizer has to deliver. It's sometimes hard when a very established marathon has got a whole host of plans, sponsors already in place to then bring in a championship like that. But it's definitely worth exploring.
And then you could go to Andy Burnham and say it's the launch pad for the Northwest England Olympic bid, can't you? Which I
Exactly.
presume you're going to be in charge of now.
Yeah, and all joking aside, Andy and the team in Manchester are really ambitious in terms of growing current events and then bringing future events to Manchester. So, yes, it's the day after the marathon, but absolutely we would explore any of these opportunities to help grow either our events or, bring a new event to Manchester. That's always an option, isn't it?
Couple more questions for me, Andrew, just on that. How much does a week differ from your normal week? You've just had Manchester. Now, how does this week kind of work? You'll be looking back, but is it lots of meeting and greetings and trying to as you say, come up with the next big thing?
You have lots of wrap-up meetings, really over the next month, but particularly these next 2 weeks. From myself talking to Andy's office, and what can we do next year to support and improve it further. Obviously through to some sort of operational aspects, things like the metro data. How did that work? What lines worked well? What lines do we have to make some changes to? Some quite granular stuff, but things that are very important. Through to officially launching the event, which is tomorrow on the Tuesday. So that's launching it for 2027 and just making sure that your socials are flooded with brilliant stories. The weather gods were amazingly kind to us yesterday, so they look brilliant, and yeah, it's about capturing that moment. We all know it from sort of Wimbledon tennis, don't we? All the tennis courts are booked up, and it's a little bit like that post big marathon. Suddenly, I was out there this morning just visiting sort of Timperley and Sale, just having a little look at the communities down there, and I saw a lot of people out running, and I thought, well, I bet you don't look like you've run the marathon, so maybe you were inspired, and that's what's important to us, to inspire the next runner. And there'll be a lot of new first timers again next year, really. So that they're the people we want to tap into.
So what you're saying is people listening to this can effectively sign up for next year's.
Effectively, they can, yeah, absolutely. Be inspired. Come and run Manchester. Finish right in the city centre. Finishes in the Knowledge Quarter on Oxford Road. So you're sort of delivered to, the eateries and the pubs, but however you want to sort of celebrate and congratulate yourself and others. Really, it's just a fantastic city to be in and around when you want to celebrate.
Well, congratulations on the success yesterday, and good luck to all of those that will be entering for the Manchester Marathon 2027. Andrew Smith, CEO of ASO UK, the organisers of the Adidas Manchester Marathon. Thank you for speaking to Great British Bosses from Anything But Footy.
Cheers, gents. Thanks very much.